Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Menachos Daf Mem Zayin. We begin right on top with a brisa, Tanur Rabbanon, back to our discussion regarding the Kivsei Atzeres, so this package on Shavuos consisting of 2 sheep, 2 kvasim, which are a korban shlomim, very rare find, a public korban shlomim, together with a pair of bread, shtei alechem. Now they undergo a joint tenufa, waving up and down, back and forth, and then the kvasim are processed like a regular korban shlomim. We have shchita, we have the zrika, and as we learned yesterday, the processing of the shlomim, of the kvasim, actually is what gives the breads their kedusha, as we're going to see right now. Tanur Rabbanon, Kivsei Atzeres, ein mekachin es alechem ela b'shchita. So although they undergo a joint, the kvasim undergo a joint tenufa with the breads, that's not what activates the kedusha on the breads. Rather, it's the akrava of the kvasim, the shchita, the zrika, etc., is what upgrades the bread from merely being kedushas damim, monetarily kaddish, belonging to the hekdesh. It now upgrades them and makes them an object of akrava, turns them into something called kedushas hakuf, inherently kaddish, which makes them more sensitive and susceptible to all types of psulim and disqualifications, and that only happens when you process the kvasim. Again, Tanur Rabbanon, Kivsei Atzeres, ein mekachin es alechem ela b'shchita. It's the shchita of the kvasim that activates the kedusha on the lechem. Keitzad? Okay, so let's see. We have several cases. Shachtan lishman, v'zarok daman lishman. Suppose he did the shchita and the zrika lishman, having in mind the right korban. This is a shlamim. Then great, kadosh alechem, the lechem becomes kadosh, no problems. What about shachtan shaloi lishman, v'zarok daman shaloi lishman? What if the shchita and the zrika were both done with the wrong intention? He was thinking that it's an oila. In this case, since the kvasim were not processed properly, loy kadosh alechem, the lechem does not become kadosh, and it remains monetarily kadosh and not inherently kadosh. What if it's one in and one out? Shachtan lishman, the shchita was done properly, but not the zrika. V'zorak daman shaloi lishman. So one element of the processing was proper, was successful, the other one was not. What happens to the breads? Halachem kadosh ve'ein kadosh. The bread is somewhere in the middle. It's kadosh, but not really. Somewhat, but not completely. As we're going to see soon. Whose opinion is that? Divrei Rebbe. So Rebbe says it's somewhere in the middle, because it had a successful shchita, but not zrika. Rebbe Lezer, B'Shem Aimer, he says nothing doing. It's a non-starter. Unless you have a successful zrika, you have nothing regarding the breads. There's no kedusha at all. Until the shchita and, right, both the shchita and the zrika were done successfully. My time in the Rebbe. Why does Rebbe hold otherwise? Why is it that the shchita alone can accomplish some form of kedusha? The chsiv. Now zevach means zvicha, the shchita. So the shchita accomplishes something. This is actually by the Nazir, which is the source material from where we learn that the shchita of the kvasim does the same to the breads, just like by the ayel of the shlamim, it's mekadosh his breads here as well. So we follow the same model. Just as over there, the shchita itself can accomplish some sort of upgrade in the kedusha of the bread here as well. Remember, we learn from here the shchita mekacha, it's the act of shchita alone that can accomplish some form of kedusha on the breads. Rabbi Lezer B'Shimon, he disagrees. He says yasa. Yasa means complete the entire process. Until he finishes everything properly. So what does Rebbe do with yasa? The answer is iksiv zevach yasa. Yeah, if the pasuk would say zevach yasa, because the Amris, I would agree with you. Zevach means a shchita, and yasa means complete the whole process properly. So that's required. Hashta t'chsev yasa zevach, but it doesn't say like that. It says yasa zevach. B'mei yasa bezvicha. In this case, the definition of yasa means bezvicha. So the shchita alone can accomplish something. Rabbi Lezer B'Shimon, t'chsev zevach. According to Rabbi B'Shimon, who focuses on yasa, the entire process. What about the word zevach, which indicates shchita alone can do something? That's coming for something else. It's coming for Rabbi Yechanan's halacha. Rabbi Yechanан, even Rabbi Lezer B'Shimon, who says that the zrika is critical for the kedusha of the bread, even he agrees Even though he knows that the shchita alone cannot really accomplish much, but you should know the lechem has to be around, has to be there by the shchita, because it is the initiation of the process. Although it doesn't really accomplish, doesn't really activate kedusha, but it is the initiation of the process, and the lechem has to accompany the entire process. Okay, so again, the kvasim are makadosh the lechem, the shchita and the zrika were lishma, great. Both shlo lishma, non-starter. Shchita lishma, zrika shlo lishma. Rebbe says the lechem is kaddish ve'enei kaddish. It's partially kaddish. We're going to define that in a minute. And Rav Shimon says it's not kaddish at all. Okay, so what does Rebbe mean? My kaddish ve'enei kaddish. So on that we branch off again. Okay, gotta hold on here. Abaye and Rav. Abaye Amar kaddish ve'enei gomer. It's somewhat kaddish, but not completely. Rav Amar kaddish ve'enei niter. It's kaddish, but it's not permitted for consumption. It's not a successful offering. Now, they both seem to be saying the same thing. My benai, any difference in practicality here? There's a difference. The mitzvah with yainai. According to one pshat and Rashi, it means like this. Let's say he decides to redeem these breads. So he sets down some money to redeem the breads. Can he take that money and now use it for any other carbon, or does it have to be used for the same designated purpose as the breads? So the kedusha of the bread sort of gets transferred to the money. But it's still in the early stages here, because there was no real kedusha, or no complete kedusha applicable to the breads yet. It was still more the process when this happened. The limited kedusha on the bread at this early point is not powerful enough. It's not considered committed to the process. In which case, if you redeem it and you transfer that sort of weak kedusha on this money, that money can be used to buy any carbon. It isn't necessarily committed to this cause. It's somewhat kaddish ve'enei gomer. It's not complete. It's not committed to the cause, and therefore, when it's transferred to money, that money can be used to buy any other carbon. It can be diverted to a different purpose. Whereas the Rava Tavis B'Yainei, Rava who says that it's kaddish, it's just not mutar ba'achila, it's already committed to this process. The shtei lechem must be used as shtei lechem, and likewise, the replacement money as well has that same designation. Okay, so again, we're talking about Rebbe's shita, who says kaddish ve'enei kaddish. Abaye says you can redeem it and use the money for any other carbon purpose. Rava says it's committed to this process. And that's Rebbe's shita. According to Rav Shimon, it doesn't even have that limited kedusha. So Bishlam el Rava, according to Rava, who says that Rebbe holds the lechem and the substitute money is committed, and Rav Shimon says it's not committed because he says it's not even kaddish at all. Bishlam el Rava. So according to Rava, we understand there's a difference between Rebbe and Rav Shimon. Hainu. So this very point just discussed is the difference between the ikabein between Rebbe and Rav Shimon. Rebbe says money is committed, and Rav Shimon says it's not. Allah Abaye, we're going to Abaye, that even Rebbe does not commit the breads, the monies, in exchange of the breads, to this cause. That's Rebbe's shita. So Rav Shimon seems to be saying the same thing. He also says there's no kedusha at all. Allah Abaye ma'ikos. So any practical differences between Bein Rebbe and Rav Shimon? Yeah, it could be na'il of yaitze. Let's say the breads were taken out of the azara, which typically would make the carbon material possible, because it left the area yaitze. So what happens if, picture it, you have a shchita lishma. Okay, so you're midway. Now the breads leave the area. So according to Rebbe, the breads have already acquired some minimal level of kedusha by way of the shchita. If they leave the area, it becomes possibly yaitze. According to Rav Shimon, it's not so. So you got the zrika done. You haven't really activated any kedusha on the breads. If they leave the area, just bring them right back and continue the process of zrika, and you have successful breads. Okay, so in a nutshell, we learned the fundamental idea about kvasim b'makadosh the lechem by way of the shchita. So if you did the shchita and the zrika lishma, you're good to go. Both shaloi lishma, the breads are not kaddish. What if the shchita was lashma, but the zrika not? So that's subject to machlekes between Rebbe, based on the pasuk, learns that even the shchita can accomplish some kedusha. According to Shimon, no kedusha at all until you have the zrika done properly. So according to Rava, Rebbe would hold that there's some kedusha to the point that if you redeem the breads, that replacement money must be used for the same purpose. That's Rebbe, but not Rav Shimon. According to Abaye, the difference would be that according to Rebbe, once you have shchita done, the bread already is somewhat kaddish, and if it leaves the area, it's possible yaitze. Not so according to Lezer Rav Shimon. Okay, continues the Gemara with another presentation. Continuing on the same line. Boy minei. So who asked the question? Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak asked me, Rabbi Chia bar Abba. I have a question. Exactly the case we discussed a minute ago. Kiv seyat seres, right? Those sheep. Sheshachtan l'shman, whose shchita was successful, l'shman, but the zrika not. What happens to the bread? Oisei alechem mal bachil. What's the status of the bread with respect to consuming them? Are they considered properly processed or not? Now, let's break this down into bite-sized pieces. Aliba the man, whose opinion are we addressing here? Aliba the Rav Shimon, according to him, of course the answer is no. Amar, he told us a minute ago, Zrika hidamakacha. It's the Zrika that does the kedusha. Until you have Zrika, you're not able to. Okay, Aliba the Rebbe. So let's shift to Rebbe, who seems to say that the shchita alone can activate some kedusha. Yeah, but not to eat the breads. You can't say it's a successful mission. Ilib the Rebbe, well, bein la'abaye bein l'Rava, according to both shittas, kaddish vein niter. At most, it's kaddish, but there's no heter achila vein niter. So what's your question? Oh, the answer is we have yet a third opinion here. It's not Rebbe. It's not Rav Shimon. El liba the Haitana. Let's take a look at a different opinion. The Tani Abod Rabbi Yirmiyah Abba, he presented a brayso. We will discover yet another shita which perhaps will allow us to eat the breads under these circumstances. He'll hold that even an improper zrika can permit the breads for consumption. So here's the case. So now we shift to a different case. Let's keep the question in mind. Let's put it on the back burner, and let's shift gears to a different scenario. And we'll come back to the first case in a minute. Okay, so now we have shtei alechem sheyotzu. They left the area. Ben shchita l'zrika. He did the shchita. Shtei alechem now were taken out of the area. Ben shchita l'zrika. V'zorak daman shal kvasim chutz l'zman. And now he proceeded with the zrika. But he had pigel in mind. He had in mind to eat the kvasim in a week's time, and that makes them pigel. So certainly the kvasim are pigel. The question is, what happens to the breads, which are out of the area? Do they get swept along? Do they get caught on to this process as well? Do they get affected and are considered pigel if one eats them? There's curse or not? Don't worry about the breads now. There's no pigel on the breads. They're unaffected by this process. Rabbi Kiva, he says, if you had machshava pigel while processing the kvasim, the breads that are outside become pigel. How do you explain this machlekes? He says, let me explain to you what's going on. So first of all, you should know both of these opinions, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva, are both going with Rabbi. First of all, you have to get that established, that the shchita on its own will activate some form of kedusha on the breads. Okay, so that explains why when the breads leave the area, they become pasul, because they already have kedusha. As we said before, they are now susceptible to the psul of yaitze. Okay, so that's the base fact. That we're going like Rebbe, the shchita will apply some kedusha to the breads, making them susceptible to yaitz. Now as to the next question. So what happened afterwards? The zrika took place with a machshava of pickle. Rabbi says the breads don't get affected by pickle. Rabbi Akiva says it does. What's the basis for this machlekes? But Rabbi Lezer Tamei, you see, there's another machlekes between these two chachamim, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Akiva. So our discussion today links into that machlekes as well. Rabbi Lezer Tamei, Rabbi Lezer here, who says that the breads are unaffected, is in line with his opinion stated elsewhere, the Amma who says regarding a carbon, let's say a regular standard, forget about breads, a regular carbon, a shlamim, okay, whose basar left the area before the zrika. The Amma who says, "Ein zrika me'elas liyaitze," the zrika on the carbon cannot affect, benefit. It can't do anything for the material that's outside. It's out of range. Okay? Rabbi Akiva Tamei the Amar zrika me'elas liyaitze. Rabbi Akiva holds as zrika can benefit, can impact basar that left the area. And likewise over here, where the breads left the area, Rabbi Lezer says, even though the zrika is taking place inside and the breads are outside and puzzle, it's irrelevant. They're part and parcel of this package. If there's pigul on the carbon, there's pigul on the breads. Rabbi Akiva says no. The breads are out of range. So although the pigul occurred on the carbon, but not on the breads, it's not. Where do we find this discussion? Whether the zrika carries over to the material that's outside, it's not. Emurim kachim kalm, we have the emurim, the fats of the kachim kalm, which are meant for the mizbeach. Problem was they left the area. They were taken out of Beis Hamikdash. Shiyatzu l'fnei zrika is done before the zrika. And now you did the zrika, and the fats are still outside. How closely connected are they with this carbon here? Rabbi Lezer Omer, no, they're outside, they're disconnected, out of range, out of reception. There's no me'il on those fats, which typically happens when zrika occurs. And there's no applying to them the halachas of pigul and noiser and tummy. They're not considered part of the carbon. So although the zrika was done with a machshava of pigul, it doesn't affect the emurim. They're outside, they're out of reception. But noiser and tummy, Rabbi Akiva says, yes, they are part of the package. They are part of the process, even though they're out of range. Rabbi Akiva Omer, they're so closely connected that it overrides time and space. Rabbi Akiva Omer Mayalan, man, the zrika that's taking place in the Beis Hamikdash will address the material outside as well, with respect to activating me'ila and pigul, etc. Okay? So knowing this, what is this? This is like this. We're talking about a pair of breads with two kvasim, where the kvasim were nishchat lishman, right? And then the breads were taken outside. And then he proceeded with this zrika as pigul. Question: do the breads become pigul? Rabbi Lezer says no. And we linked it to the Rabbi Lezer Shita stated elsewhere that the zrika inside doesn't impact the items outside. Rabbi Akiva says it does. Just as the zrika of a carbon affects its basar outside, with respect to the halachas of pigul, etc., same with the breads that are currently outside and already became possible b'yitzir. So now let's shift back to our question at hand. So we began our discussion with a question, right? He has kvasim, he has lechem. Shchita was on the shman, and the breads were here, okay? Simple case. They never left, they're here. But the zrika was done shalei l'shman. What would you say according to Rabbi Akiva? Shall we say? And just like in his case, where the zrika was done the shem pigul, on the breads which left the area became possible. It's irrelevant. They get impacted by the zrika of the carbon, they become pigul as well. They're so closely knit, so closely connected, to the kvasim. Whatever happens to the kvasim happens to them. They share the same fate. So perhaps the same thing over here. That even though the zrika happens shlei lishma, but the breads share the same fate as the carbon, just like the carbon could be eaten. Even if it was shlei lishma, it's not going to count as your ideal carbon, but it's still permissible. You could eat it. So perhaps the bread share the same status as well. Okay, so it's like the breads shared the zrika experience. They benefited from the zrika experience. They can be eaten. That's one way to look at it. Okay, so let's see. Mai. So based on this discussion, what would you say in our case? Where the breads were stayed inside, but the problem is the shechita was l'shma, but the zrika was shlei l'shma. So although it wasn't really a successful zrika, but perhaps the breads can still be eaten. Mai, the zrika's pigel covered lechem, just like the zrika of pigel in that case over there. Covered lechem bepigel. B'yaitze. Even though the breads left the area, which makes them puzzle, they're still somewhat connected to the carbon, in which case the zrika's pigel impacts the breads as well and makes them pigel kibasa, just like we say that the zrika of the carbon affects its flesh that left the area. It's one package. It's part and parcel of the same. So likewise, in the case of zrika shlei lishma, in our case, where the breads are here, and the zrika was lishma, but the zrika shlei lishma, the shechita was lishma, but the zrika was shlei lishma. Zrika shlei lishma nami shari lechem. Perhaps it can permit the bread for consumption, just like the kvasim mutter, the breads also. The one entity, ideal mo, you can say no. This long distance impact perhaps only works to its detriment. The zrika's pigel, the breads are pigel. Perhaps not to permit the breads. I mean, we can say l'chumra, but l'kula l'amrin, we can't say l'kula to positively impact the breads. So the zrika shlei lishma, perhaps that's not what the Torah only means, that the zrika lishma can impact the breads, but in a beneficial way, in a positive way. But to use a zrika which was shlei lishma, sort of unsuccessful zrika, and use that to permit the breads, perhaps that you can't do. We don't say they're so integrally part of the kvasim that they become mutter, even though it was a zrika shlei lishma. Okay, so that's the question that we're dealing with. Okay, so we're talking about kvasim and the lechem. The kvasim were nishchat lishma, and then nizruk shlei lishma. The question is, can we eat the lechem? And we related it to a different case, where shechita of the kvasim was lishma, and the lechem left the area, became pasal b'yaitze, and then the zrika happened as pigel. Rabbi Kiva says the breads become pigel, so we see that they get impacted even by an improper zrika. Even when they're pasal, they became yaitze already. They're so part and parcel of this package, it's inseparable. So shall we say it in our case as well? The shechita with the shema and the zrika shlei lishma, the breads can be eaten because they're considered as though they experienced this hakrava, which permits them for achila. Do we say no? An unsuccessful zrika cannot positively impact the breads. Maskal papa. I have a question on this whole discussion. You're assuming that Rabbi Kiva holds that the zrika of pigel can impact the breads which are outside and became pasal b'yaitze. Who's to say we're talking about that type of case? And that forms the basis of our discussion, and theoretically would apply to the case of zrika shlei lishma. Perhaps we're speaking that nothing wrong happened to the breads in that case. They're back in. They were taken out for a minute, but then they were brought back in. They were taken out after zrika, after shechita, sorry. And we're going like the shita, that shechita does nothing to the bread. They don't become kosher. They can leave. They can take a walk. You bring them back in before the zrika, they're back home. They're safe territory. So, for all practical purposes, they never left the area. They're kaddish. Yeah, so in this case, I understand fully well why the zrika of pigel impacts the breads, because the breads are perfectly fine. But in our case, where the zrika was shaloi lishma, that's an unsuccessful zrika. Who says it can be mata the breads? Okay, so that's the essence of his question. Maskal Rav Papa. I have a question to Rav Papa. Why? How could you compare? Who's to say the Chi'isnu Avroi Pli? Who says Rabbi Akiva is talking where the breads are outside and disqualified, and still he says that the Zrika that's taking place inside can impact them? Perhaps in a case where they're still sitting outside by the Zrika, all agree. The Zrika that's taking place inside can't affect them outside. Of course not. We're talking that the breads were taken back inside, just in time for the Zrika. And the machlekes between Rav Lezer and Rav Akiva is Rav Lezer holds so like a Rebbe, holds like a Rebbe. Even the shchita already affected some kedusha, activated some kedusha, and therefore so therefore when the bread's left after acquiring some level of kedusha, they become pasal b'yaitze, so they're out of bounds, out of the picture. Rav Akiva, Rav Lezer, Shimon. Rav Akiva was like Rav Shimon Damar, who says shchita does nothing to the breads, so they're as yet not holy. Shchita loy mekadsha. So even if they were taken out for a minute, they don't become pasal. So as long as they're back in before Zrika, they're safe. And of course, they get affected by the pigul that happened with the Zrika. Of course, they're perfectly fine breads. Says the Gemara, no. You can't say that. You can't ask that. How could you ask this question? Because you have to say that Rav Akiva holds like Rebbe. It's only going to work that way. If you hold that Rav Akiva follows Rebbe, the Amar who's just told us before, Shchita Mekachel, then in fact the Shchita of the Kvasim does elevate and does sanctify the breads somewhat. Hainu the Kamar Rav Akiva, the Kachel B'Shchita. That would explain what Rav Akiva said. And that is that the breads become somewhat kaddish through the shchita. So in this case, where the shchita was fine, that grants a measure of kedusha to the breads. And now, subsequently, when he continues and does this rika with pigul, the bread become pigul as well, because they're already in mid-process. They're already relevant. They're already considered kaddish and carbon materials that can be affected by pigul. So only that way can we explain Rav Akiva's direction. But according to your question, that perhaps Rabbi Akiva was going to the Rav Shimon, who says that shchita does not activate any measure of kedusha on the breads, and therefore the breads here are perfectly fine, even though they left the area. They just brought back, as long as they're back before Zrika, so there's nothing wrong, so there's no connection to our story. If you're going to suggest, as you just asked, Rabbi Akiva was going like Rabbi Shimon, that the zvicha, the shchita of the kvasim doesn't activate any kedusha on the breads. That's the case. It's a good question, but it's not going to work with the halacha that Rabbi Akiva is presenting to us. Zrika spigul mimakacha. If the breads are not kaddish at all, you have to wait for the zrika to make it kaddish. Well, actually, this zrika was a zrika of pigul. That can't activate any kedusha on the breads. So the whole case wouldn't work out. We know that for a fact from Gidlam Rav. V'amar Gidlam Rav, he tells us, Zrikas pigul eina mevila de meila, ve'eina metziyam de meila. If one takes dam and applies it to the mizbeach with a machshav of pigul, it can't activate meila, it can't deactivate meila, meaning eina mevila de meila. It can't activate meila b'bur kachim kalam, by the fats of the kachim kalam, the lighter karbanos like a shlamim, where the meila gets activated after zrika on those fats, because now they're designated for the mizbeach. If the zrika was done in a pigul format, it can't accomplish that. It's a failed zrika. And likewise, ve'eina metziyam de meila, can never deactivate meila in a case of b'sar kachim, the flesh of a kodesh kadashim, like a chatas, where the typically the zrika now designates the basar to the kohanim for the kohanim's use, and therefore it takes away the meila. Well, if the zrika was pigul, it can't do that. So we see that a zrika of pigul is limited, powerless. Certainly, you cannot take the shtei alecha and make them kaddish and make them pigul. You need the zrika to make them kaddish to be good. They're not kaddish unless you have a proper zrika. A zrika spil can't do that. So clearly, Rabbi Akiva is not going with the shita that shchita does nothing, it's only a zrika, because otherwise he wouldn't consider the lechem to be pigel in this case, where the shchita was failed and only the zrika was done, because this type of zrika can't make pigel, can't make kedusha on the breads. It's powerless to activate kedusha on those breads, and certainly they would not become pigel. It cannot render them carbon material to make them pigel. The only way this is going to work, the only way we can understand Rabbi Akiva, who says that the breads become pigel, is because the shechita does do something. And once they've already acquired some level of kedusha by the shechita, so now the zrikas pigel can turn them into pigel. In which case, that leads us to the next question, discussed earlier. Perhaps a zrika shlei lishma can do the same, as we discussed. Lavi toisav the regidul marav. The response is, but this halacha, this quote from Rav, that a zrikas pigel can't do much, it's been refuted elsewhere, Mesachas Me'ilah, so you can't really use that as a reference point, in which case our question still stands. So we thought we had a right from Rabbi Akiva, perhaps it's not really going to be shed much clarity on our case. So again, we had a shaila. The shechita of the kvasim was lishman, but the zrika shalei lishman, what happens to the breads, can you eat them? We thought we had a connection to Rabbi Akiva, who says likewise that the similar vein, that the failed, zrika of a pigel on the lechem that left the area can apply to the breads. The question is whether it's going to work in our case as well. We're not really sure. Okay, one more last discussion here regarding the kivsei atzeres shlei lishman. Boy minei Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zeira had a question. Kivsei atzeres sheshchatan lishman. So the kvasim were done lishman. Okay, so the shechita was lishman. V'avad alechem. So now, once the shechita was done lishman, all agree they are now bound to their breads. You can't separate them, you can't, right? The lechem disappeared on you. So now, the kvasim are failed, so to speak. You have to burn them. Can I now shift them and redesignate them and relabel them as though they're ordinary carbon shlamim, not kivsei atzeres? Ma'osh yizrok daman shlei lishman. Can I do the zrika with another designation in mind? I'm no longer regarding them as the shlamim of the breads, regular shlamim. What's the purpose? Lahater basar b'achila, to enable the consumption of the basar. Fine, it's not going to count as the kvasim of atzeres, of shvuos, of the bread, because we lost the bread, package fell apart, right? Collapsed the whole system. But can I now at least salvage them, use them as a regular shlam? Amalei, he says, of course not. Do we ever have such a precedent to take something which is not suitable if done properly, and if done improperly it's going to be suitable? If it can't work properly, of course it can't work improperly. Really, we don't find such an idea. We find by Karban Pesach, Erev Pesach. Kodim Chatzos, you have a Karban Pesach before Chatzos of Erev Pesach. Then a kosher l'shma. If you shecht it for the sake of Karban Pesach, it's too early, it's possible. But you could divert it as a shlamim. The kosher l'shma, if you shecht it as a shlamim, it's okay. So you see, it can work. So Rabbi Zeira says, no, I meant like this. Find me a case of something which had already been suitable for its purpose. Its time has come, its process has begun, like in our case, where it was shechted properly. Then something came and rejected it from its designation. You lost the breads, right? And in fact, if you continue with that same track, it's not going to work. And you're telling me if I divert it, it's going to work? That's improbable. Responds the Gemara, no, I'll still find you a case that it works. Really? It doesn't work? Vari Pesach achazmane. Karban Pesach after Pesach, right? It was suitable. And now it's no longer suitable for Karban Pesach. So it's throughout the year. If I do it for Pesach, it's possible. If I divert it as a shlam, it works. Perhaps in the same case, same over here. Says Rabbi Zeira, no, I meant like this. What I meant is like this. Since when do you have a case of a carbon which was suitable for its purpose, for its designation, and it was shechted accordingly, like in our case, and then something happened, it was pushed away from Lishmai, it can no longer be used for its original destiny. Ve'ena kasher Lishmai, right? If you're kasher Lishmai, you're going to tell me that it's okay if you do Shlei Lishmai. Says the Gemara, V'loi, really not? Says Rabbi Yirmi, I find the case, Vari Toida, a carbon Toida, whose bread became disqualified after the Shechita. So you have a carbon Toida with the bread, do the Shechita, so it's already en route, on track, and something goes wrong with the breads. You can continue. How? By redesignating it as a shlamim, from a Toida to a shlamim. So you see that it can work. So perhaps in our case as well. No, says Reb Zera, that's an exception. Shani Toida, the Rachmana Kari Shlamim. Toida is very different. The Torah calls it a shlamim. The pasuk says, "Psar zevach Toida shlama v'yen karbana yachal v'chul." Toida is a subset of a shlamim. So if it don't work as a Toida, you can quickly shift it over, divert it as a shlamim, and it will work. As opposed to Kivsei Atzeres, which have only one single designation, Kivsei Atzeres. And if it's not going to work, it's possible. Okay, we started and ended with the Kivsei Atzeres. So we started at the Kivsei Atzeres of Makadosh the Lechem, through the Shechita Lishma, Zrika Lishma, certainly good. Both Shloi Lishma, no good. The Lechem is not Kaddish. What if the Shechita was a Shma and the Zrika not? So according to Rebbe, the Shechita itself can accomplish some Kedusha. According to Reb Shimon, it cannot without the Zrika. We had an interesting discussion regarding breads which left the area, and the pigel happened during the Zrika. What happens to the breads? We had a machlekes on that, which tied into a different machlekes regarding Zrika me'elas liyaitze. And we concluded with a case of Kivsei Atzeres after Shechita, who lost its breads. Can you now redesignate the kvasim and use them as regular shlamims? So we sort of we had a back and forth on that. It wasn't really 100% resolved. Okay, all the best to you and Hatzlacha.